Hey guys, welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. My name is Brian.
And my name is Maggie.
And we interview Asian entrepreneurs around the world to amplify their voices and empower Asians to pursue their dreams and goals.
We believe that each person has a message and a unique story from their entrepreneurial journey that they can share with all of us. Hi everyone, welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Today we have two very special guests with us. They are Trisha Bantigue and Kathy Zhou. Trisha is the co-founder and CEO of Queenly, a formalwear marketplace and search engine. After graduating from UC Berkeley, she's worked at Facebook and Google in executive recruiting. Her inspiration for starting Queenly has stemmed from her experience as an active pageant contestant, having recently served as Miss Asian Global and Miss California Earth. Kathy is the co-founder and CTO of Queenly. She's graduated from the University of Pennsylvania and has been an engineer at Pinterest and Venmo. Her and Trisha met during a college internship at a tech startup and have been working on Queenly since Trisha mentored through her first pageant. She's drawn on her full stack engineering experience to build Queenly on web, Android, and iOS within the first year of launching. Welcome to the show, Trisha and Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro. Those are pretty good.
That's yeah, we're good because you guys are so impressive.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you on the show. Let's start with Trisha. What was your upbringing like?
Okay, right to the good stuff.
You just had your day today, so fresh in your mind.
I would say, I think my upbringing was definitely unconventional when it comes to your typical Asian upbringings. I know that the stereotypes for Asian households is tiger mom, dad, really hard on you and you should be a doctor and lawyer, etc. And I actually had the complete opposite, where I think my parents, my family just didn't care what I did. And even when I had accomplishments at school, it's kind of they don't know what it is, so they don't care. I come from a very low income family. I was born in the Philippines. And then my mom and dad had to divorce when I was age of 2. My dad went to Japan to work, and then my mom went to the US to work. And so I was pretty much left at the hands of my grandparents growing up. And it was hard because the Philippines is a Catholic country, so most kids have both their parents. So it was always just a struggle for me in that sense. And I've always known that I was going to be quote unquote reunited with my mom later on. And then at the age of 10, she petitions me to go to Las Vegas, Nevada, the best place to raise a kid. And she actually had a very severe gambling addiction, and it affected our relationship a lot. At the age of 17, I decided that it was best for me to go off on my own, as it was really affecting my school, my goals in life, etc. And so I was very much independent then, and I was way in over my head, but I got through it. I worked a lot of jobs, but yeah, that's been my upbringing.
Wow. I mean, shout out to you too. That's a pretty tough upbringing. I feel like that upbringing made you the person that you are today, so strong and resourceful and independent. That sounds like a great quality behind a tech founder, greediness, perseverance, resourcefulness, all of it.
Who knew one day it would be useful?
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been such a hard decision, especially at a young age. I'm glad that you got to know what your goals were and you knew what was best for yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's hear from Kathy. What was your upbringing like?
Yeah, it was actually somewhat similar, and thankfully, but also unfortunately, unfortunate in the upbringing of how my family also came from a place with not too much money, also an immigrant family. I had to deal with various things throughout my childhood and high school, including being able to financially support myself through college, through internships, scholarships, dealing with substance abuse from a family member, and having a lot of that childhood trauma sort of be something I needed to be resilient of and grow out of. And what was a really good silver lining out of that was how Trisha and I had bonded. That's how we trust each other, because we both understand each other's personalities from that place of empathizing, like, okay, we think like this, we are trying to grow, we're always trying to learn, and we're trying to really prove ourselves in this industry where we've had so many disadvantages and not the advantages that other people have.
Wow.
That's very powerful. And so, Trisha, we know that you grew up in Vegas, and Kathy, you grew up in Boston, right?
Yes.
How was growing up in those areas like kind of shaped your Asian identity?
For me, it was kind of interesting because Asian Americans were a minority there. I think Chinatown was at most 2 blocks in radius. So I think that, thankfully, some of there were a lot of family friends that we kept in touch with here and there in Boston, but I did feel like a minority. I did feel like, oh, I'm never going to be that, face of leadership, face of America, success, that sort of thing. That sort of thing is just not for you when you're very aware of that minority status.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For Vegas, I would say now at least there's like a decent population of Asian Americans there, Filipinos, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean. And I think it has to do with the job opportunities there that are very easily attainable for immigrants, as well as like it's really cheap. But I never quite realized how conservative Vegas was when I was growing up because I had no knowledge of like political ideals. And so I came to the US 5th grade and all my friends were like pretty much white until like later. And then, I would go to their houses and they would yell at their parents. And it's just like such a very different thing, right? And that was weird to me. But I think a lot of Asian Americans there do try to assimilate a lot to the white dominant culture. And now, like looking back, like when I visit Vegas, there's like Trump signs everywhere and people carrying guns. And it's just such a weird thing for me now that I'm very much aware that that's like, oh, that's kind of weird. That's not okay. But as a kid, it's like, you don't know, like you don't know these things. That's what I experienced.
Yeah, that's some awesome and interesting experience to hear from.
Yeah.
Especially for us. I grew up in California. I mean, I was surrounded by Asians all my life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got to college that I started traveling more. That I'm like, wait a minute, I am a minority? No one told me that. So that's a rude awakening for me. So out of curiosity too, I know that you guys both have pretty rough upbringings in life. I'm kind of curious, like what are your views about money then? And what is it like now?
That's a good question. You can start.
Yeah, I'd say that it took a lot in terms of therapy, dealing with mental health, just like reflecting on myself as a person to really feel comfortable doing certain things, just as much as just wasting $10 even. It was a huge struggle for most of my life, just feeling like I never, in college, trying to make sure my bank account would stay positive as I paid for food and classes and tuition fees and really feeling that weight. And I think that's something a lot of Americans struggle with is the sort of financial trauma that it's brought on you if you grown up with that mindset. And it's so hard to get out of. That's why it's been such a struggle for people to be able to become founders and entrepreneurs if you've grown up with that mindset. It takes a huge amount of financial risk and a huge amount of feeling like you can believe in yourself and having that like self-confidence to take even more risks because your whole life is saying, oh, let's not put myself in that situation. So it's very counterintuitive.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've had a very complicated relationship with money, finances because of my mom and seeing her just like be buried in debt and like file 2 bankruptcies and just a bunch of things like taking out, payday loans and here and there. That really scarred me to the point where I wanted to have financial security for myself. And I never wanted to ask money from anyone, even like $20 from a friend. Like I was very much into like, I don't want to be like my mom. So I have to be super independent and not rely on anyone for help. And that has been the hardest thing for me to get over when it comes to fundraising, especially as a founder, as a CEO. And it was very difficult for me to ask money from a stranger that I've never, really met, I'm not close to, when all my life I've avoided asking for money. And this is something that Kathy has helped me drastically with. And also when I started on my journey, healing from my traumas, by actually, seeing a therapist and being more aware of my mental and emotional health, my therapist also reminds me that it's different now. Like, this is different. But that's hard, right? When you're really scarred from traumas, to really separate yourself from that. And I'm still learning, but I've definitely gotten a lot better, and I've gained a lot more confidence and insight when it comes to money, fundraising, and finances now.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from Trisha too, in terms of us relying on each other for that emotional support of putting ourselves in that situation. It takes a lot of mental health growth and a lot of just relying on the people around you to heal from that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I would be able to ever raise this much money before. And I've never seen so many zeros in my bank account.
Yeah, when you're your parents are missing payments on the rent, and the rent is $800. Any angel check, the amounts that tech and the whole of Silicon Valley talk about, it just feels crazy.
Yeah, I think you touched upon a very sensitive topic for a lot of us too, and that's unlearning our trauma and what we believe is possible. I feel that's a common theme among first generation Asian Americans, that we have to unlearn a lot of things from our parents, especially from the scarcity mindset point of view. And I think that's a really good way. I think what you guys went through and unlearn, it's a good role model for a lot of us to follow, It's because a lot of people in the situation can't find themselves coming out of that situation, but you guys found each other. You guys found a network and support to really help you level up and unlearn certain things and get to the next level. The other thing I do want to touch upon is going to therapy and seeking mental health experts. That's such a stigma in Asian culture, And the fact that you guys normalized it, and we're trying to normalize it on our part too. We've been having a lot of more mental health events in the Asian Hustle Network. It's because it's a real thing. It's something that, especially that our generation is becoming more aware of. But for our parents, when we talk to them about mental health, they pretend like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Elephant in the room. Yeah.
Exactly.
Shove it under your rug. Yeah. I mean, for the longest time with my family and whoever, mental health, if you need to see a therapist, something's wrong with you and you're crazy. And so meaning you shouldn't do that, meaning you don't need it because you don't want to seem like you're crazy or that you're, mentally ill or something. And I think that's such a huge stigma to break, especially now in 2021. I owe a lot to Kathy when it comes to I would have never ever started on this journey because I've always been a go-getter type of personality. I have to keep going. I don't have time to think about my feelings. I don't have, I don't care about my feelings. I just have to keep going. But Kathy reminded me that that it's also, I should also prioritize my feelings, myself, my mental health. And she's the one that recommended that I see a therapist. And I was really hesitant at first, but because I thought, how can a stranger help me? They don't know me, they're not my friend, and I don't want to pay for it. So, but luckily at that time I was working at big tech companies that were, they were able to reimburse that cost. So I was like, okay, why not? Let me try it. And since then, it's helped me tremendously.
Yeah. I love that. I love how you two are just learning a lot from each other. And, same thing with my family. When I grew up, they didn't, even talk about therapy. They always thought if you had to go see a therapist, there would be something wrong with you. But there's so much strength and courage that it takes to actually see a therapist, because you're showing that you want to improve yourself. And there are things in your life that you can't organize yourself inside your thoughts that a therapist can help you with. And I love that you two are recognizing that.
Definitely. I do want to switch topics onto Queenly. Let's hear more about Queenly and what was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah.
When did you guys?
Stories. For the
how did you get into pageantry first?
Yeah,
How
let's
did
start
that
chronologically
start?
first.
And, would love to know about like the elephant in the room. There used to be like a bad connotation to pageantry, but we'd love to know like your perspective on how that industry is like breaking stereotypes and how like they're embracing feminism and just like, intelligence as well.
Could I start on this? Because I actually just did my first national pageant this past weekend.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Trisha supported me, helped mentor me through a lot of it. Shout out to my pageant coach if she's listening. Shout out to my boyfriend, everyone who's helped me. But what I wanted to emphasize is, so the pageant is called Miss Earth United States. It is a focus on environmental activism. So people join this pageant because they are passionate about saving the earth and they want to really showcase that as part of their platform. And another great thing about, I'd say that one of the first breakthroughs that has happened this past weekend is one of my dear friends, my pageant sisters, Emma Loney, Miss Wisconsin Earth. She placed in top 12 and she
out of 50.
Out of 50. Wow. She's a plus size model. She is active in promoting body positivity. And normally there's a whole stigma against beauty pageants of like carrying on this one narrow mindset of like what beauty should be. But there's been so much great representation in plus size women being part of this mainstream community, in Black women and women of different ethnic backgrounds being able to wear their natural hair. And I think that is so beautiful. There's such a great spotlight on that, and it's really changing the standards of beauty.
I'm really proud hearing this from her just because I'm the one that turned her into a
yeah, she started it. Yeah.
I know. I heard that you had to convince her like 8 times and
that's the thing, because all of this has actually happened in the past few years. Even a couple of years ago, people would never expect to see a plus size woman, a woman. Just last year, all 4 major pageants had Black women as their title holders. And that has unfortunately been something super new, but that was what I was learning off of, where I didn't think something like that was possible in this industry. And I'm so glad to be in it now because we're all part of this current change.
So what she just said is actually why Queenly was started, like literally.
Yeah.
So quickly go over it because Kathy has heard this a million times.
Yeah.
Because of my, I guess, financial circumstances in 2013, I had to figure out a lot of different ways to make money to pay my bills. And, I took on a lot of like receptionist jobs, fast food jobs, and even like went to research studies that paid me money for like questions or something. So I did a lot of those, and I found that pageants were a great way to gain scholarship and cash prizes. And I was reached out to in 2013 by this organization called Miss Global. And I thought it was a scam at first because why would they approach me? I've never done a pageant before. I was like 18, 19 years old. But then I was like, well, it's a free vacation for a week at the Hilton with free food. I can just go. And so going into it, I really didn't expect much. And I've never expected to join a pageant before just because I've always just been very studious and nerdy. And I just didn't dress up like that as much. And so I was really just doing it for the experience and like to get money. I got there and my orientation with like 50 women. Everyone was drop dead gorgeous, and I immediately wanted to run out the door because I felt very insecure. I was the youngest one there. I did not know how to do my makeup. I did the typical Asian eyeliner thing, which most of us did in the 2010s or something.
Yeah, I did that.
It was really bad. And so, but then it quickly changed. My perspective quickly changed because I met them. I talked to the women, and I had the best experience learning about their stories, the countries that they come from, their culture. And not only were they beautiful on the outside, but they were just kind, compassionate women who had real platforms that they cared about, that they worked towards. And they're also super smart. Like I met lawyers, entrepreneurs, PhD scientists, like it was crazy. And so after that, it inspired me a lot to kind of better myself and to grow into, I guess, the woman that I am today. I kept doing it every year to the point where I think I've done like 9 now over the past 7 years.
Is it not?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's about
damn.
now. So I've done local, state, national, international, and I just wanted to grow, and it enabled me to grow and be inspired so much. And because of that experience, I wanted to be able to share it with someone like Kathy, like Maggie, like anyone, like who is trans, who is plus size, who is a minority, like, because I want this stigma to be broken, since I think most people don't know the actual benefits of pageants and what it does for a woman's like self-esteem and self-confidence. And so I found that one of the biggest pain points of the women were finding and affording their evening gown, because it's like super expensive, and we all come in like different shapes and sizes and different colors of our skin, that it's so hard to find one. And so I quickly realized that this applies to prom, weddings, homecomings, any formals, quinceañeras, right? And I realized that a lot of women don't come from a very affluent background. Many come from a background like ours. And right now, there's not one way, one safe and secure platform to provide these dresses for them, and also to provide them an opportunity to resell it in the future. And so that's when I approached Kathy, and I was like, hey, I have this idea. And she's like, no, I don't think it's good. And I was like,
Yeah, because I thought dresses were $20. Or do know any of this stuff.
so I was like, okay, Kathy, go do a pageant so you'll see what I'm talking about. And she did. And then I guess the rest is queenly history.
The rest is queenly history.
Wow.
Wow, that is amazing. I love that story. And that is so right. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't understand, like, especially male, like they don't understand the significance of a dress. And it means so much, like whether it be prom or like a party that they're going to or their wedding, you know, like they keep that dress forever because it signifies so much.
I'm learning right now.
Love it. And so when you guys launched Queenly, I believe it was 2018, right?
19.
2019. Okay. Christmas week of 2018, like almost there.
Yeah, we're working Christmas week, and then we launched like January.
I think it was because it's confusing because I kept trying to submit it to the App Store and they kept rejecting it.
Oh,
Because
I
it's not
see.
one
Yeah.
file or something.
It's actually like, apparently it's not that simple to just submit an app to the App Store.
Yeah.
Talent.
And so 2019, after you guys launched it, what were the expectations going into it? And talk about like what the first couple of months were like for you two.
Yeah, what
Dark.
about your struggles, and, like being resourceful and not having capital and figure
Yeah.
out what you're doing?
Oh yeah, I mean, yes, everything was bootstrapped until like late 2019, and I think we had a safety net at that time because we both had full-time jobs. I was at Uber, she was at Pinterest, so it was definitely nights and weekends. And we initially launched in a private beta of like 100 users of like mainly my network of pageant girls. And I really wanted to utilize my pageant network and the pageant community to gain initial traction, because I knew like they already purchased these dresses. They already know what resale is. It's like less friction than like trying to tackle the wedding industry first, right? So our expectations, we didn't really have any. I think we
really didn't, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were like expecting, but we knew we had a problem to solve. Like we had a problem to solve. So for the first few months, we were trying to just collect sellers as a two-sided marketplace, similar to like, you know, Airbnb. You need the supply side first. And so we tried to rack up as much sellers and listings as possible. And until we got to the sweet spot of like, okay, a buyer was able to find their dream dress.
And that they had more than at least 10 dresses to choose from.
Yeah.
On Queenly.
Because you have to search like your size and then the color and then the silhouette and all those combinations is like, you need thousands of dresses in order to fulfill that one search. And May of 2019, That's when we first got our first purchase.
Yeah, we got so excited. I think I called you.
Wow.
I called you. I got the email data job went through about the dress being sold, and I was like, Trisha, someone actually bought something.
Yes, exactly.
It's actually working.
So yeah, we got our first purchase. But one of the crazy things that I wanted to kind of include in this is that we did a lot of scrappy things, like super scrappy, because not only did we not get any funding yet, but we're also like super cheap, frugal individuals where we like to save money. Like,
Yeah, we're very passionate about being frugal.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so we wanted to be like super resourceful. And it was Miss USA 2019 happening in Reno in May. And we were like, hey, like, we got to promote Queenly there because that's where all of our users are going to be. But we can't afford to pay for the official sponsorship. And the tickets were like $380 each or something. And so we were just like, okay, let's just go there and print out postcards and like see what happens. And initially I wanted to pretend that we were press. So I submitted a press application and we got like a media pass. So that's one. But then we found out that media is not allowed in the theater and they're only allowed in the press room. And we're like, well, that doesn't work because then we can't look at, we can't give our users, potential users, our postcards. We asked so many people and everyone was saying no. But at the last second, the security guard thought we were like staff. And she's like, hey, do you guys need help going inside? Because the show already started. And we just went with it. We were like, yeah, we need help. Like, we just landed 30 minutes ago. Like, we're super late. Can you help us? And so she escorted us. Though we weren't allowed in there, technically. We didn't have a ticket. But yeah, we pretty much sneaked into Miss USA and we like plastered the bathroom with Queenly postcards. We like stood next to the door as people were exiting and giving them like Queenly postcards, pretending like, hey, did you get one yet? Here you go. Like, like really like salesy, right? But yeah, that's one of the scrappy ways that we kind of utilized our resourcefulness to gain users without.
I appreciate the hustle.
I know. Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills because it's like that hustle mentality, and it's just like you guys looking back after a couple of years, you're just thinking like, dang, we hustled really hard.
I love the hustle too because it reminds me of Asian Hustle Network a year ago. I was like, oh my god, no one's posting in here, so I just DM like 300 people every day. I was like, hey guys, you want to post in my community? It's for Asian people.
Hey, you're Asian, like, here you go.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, props to you for growing Asian Hustle Network so quickly. It was a lot of Trisha's work in doing very similar things. I wanted to emphasize, by the way, that I think that this is the perspective that a lot of people, if they're going to tech, they want to be a tech founder. They should really want to not just fill all the boxes of the stereotype because Trisha does not. That's why I wanted to work with her because her Passion Network, it really helped with our initial users, but just that ability to think outside that box and not just be the stereotypical tech CEO. Like that's what's gotten us to last this far.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I love that too. And out of curiosity, like, what was the first turning point when you realized that this could be a real thing? Like we need to go out there and raise money. We need to leave our jobs. We're gonna make that jump. Like, what was that first realization like?
Yeah, because you guys were still working at your full-time jobs, and you guys were doing Queenly on the side. So it's like, when did you guys realize do this?
It's sorry to interrupt you. It's a funny story because it was a startup retreat in Hawaii this week long. It's thing that we applied to on a whim.
Yeah, by WeFunder.
It's this company called WeFunder. They're doing a tech fundraising platform. They're really great. Check them out. But because of their mentorship program, when we flew to Hawaii, they comped our stay there. We got mentors from a lot of YC founders, a lot of people that have grown. Some shut down, some sold their companies, and they were the people that initially believed in us. And I think when you're coming from places like us, where you're from that disadvantaged background where you were super poor, no one believed in you, no one thought you could succeed, like you kind of do need that external validation sometimes of people being like, hey, what are you doing? You're going to be big, like you have something working right here. You could be really big. You need to believe in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know. I think as first time and female founders going into that, I think there were like 15 other companies that were accepted. We thought that we were still too early, but then we quickly realized that we were actually way ahead than any of the founders there. And we just invalidated all of our progress because we just didn't know. We didn't know relatively. So pretty much like all the mentors that we had were just like, you girls need to quit your job today. And they were like bugging us to quit our jobs and like start fundraising ASAP because you guys have way more traction than we did when we fundraised. And so I think, you know, mentors in this journey, in this tech startup journey is really, really valuable to help you realize these turning points.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, we hear a lot about WeFunder as well, and we've heard like amazing things about them. And everything happens for a reason, right? And like, did you guys even like expect to have any like plans to go on that trip, or was it like very special?
Oh yeah, we had to lie to our managers at work. I said I was on some like women's leadership retreat. Later on, I told him the truth, and he's a cool guy. So hi, Kaden. Shout out to you if you're listening.
Oh wow! I mean, I haven't told mine, but yeah, I said I won a free Hawaii trip on Instagram.
That's actually pretty believable.
Okay, because they told us like a week and a half or something before we had to go, and so I was like, crap! Like I don't know if I can take off that much. Like I've only been here less than a year. Yeah.
Wow. I'm glad you guys made that happen.
Yeah.
I'm really glad too.
So tell us about the fundraising experience. Like, you know, you came back from this retreat, you're like, all right, you have to fundraise ASAP. Did you immediately leave your job? I'm like, all right, we're going to leave our job next week and we're going to fundraise now. Like, what was that transition like?
Well, so we had that trip in June, and then we actually didn't quit our full-time jobs until September.
Yeah, keep in mind that in terms of getting to the state of believing in yourself and feeling like you're ready to take a risk, because it does feel like a big risk, it took a lot of mental preparation.
Yeah, and I think it was also kind of like, okay, let's just wait till our vesting period so we could.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
well, mine was already up, but you had this, yeah.
I had like my 1 year cliff, and I was like, okay, might as well just stay. Like I, get these Uber stocks, whatever. So that's one. But yeah, fundraising was pretty scary at first. I mean, it's still scary actually, but we've learned a lot. And I think a lot of first-time founders actually are very, very naive. We were naive when you first approach fundraising. A lot of founders make so many mistakes, and we made a lot of mistakes. We learned along the way, but it's really a game. I see it now as like a game, where before I thought that we had to like beg money from them or something, but we forgot that, hey, these investors don't make money unless we make money. Like literally they have this like money from like LPs or whatever, but their main job is to find founders that can make them money. So without the founders, VCs have really no power to make money, if you think about it in that sense. And so I didn't realize that in the beginning. And so the way that our pitch went was like us being desperate for money. And that is just like, that does not bode well. I think it's all about like confidence and controlling the conversation and just letting them know that you're going to be big, and that whatever you're working on, you're solving a real problem. And that as, early stage founders, it's like we have a very unique set of skills and expertise and basically like co-founder compatibility that would take this company very far. And those are things that I didn't really pitch in the beginning. Now I know, obviously. Now we know. But I think I wasted so many meetings by not knowing that. And especially I would highly, highly discourage anyone from approaching VCs first, which was the mistake that I made. I think always start with angel investor checks first, and VCs will come later.
Yeah.
It's really good advice. Yeah,
it's really good advice too, because we're in our fundraising process right now. And we're like, all right.
And I love that advice. Oh, what?
I'm sorry?
Congrats to you for starting that process. I believe it.
Thank you.
And we got a couple of angel checks coming in, so it's pretty exciting. But
awesome.
it's about convincing them that we're something big. We're going to stay here for a long time. We're greedy. We don't give up type of thing, you know?
Yeah. I love that advice because I think a lot of first-time founders, they are often very desperate to get money because when you're starting out, you are desperate for money. You know, you're bootstrapping.
Yeah.
It's so easy to come off as desperate, right? But they do look for people who's like super confident. They know that they're going to make those VCs and angel investors money. And that's really important advice right there. Yeah.
I mean, there's also this like paradox when it comes to fundraising because VCs want to give you money when you don't need it anymore. But then when you need the money, VCs don't want to touch you, which is like the dumbest thing ever. But it's really the reality of it. Like, they won't pay attention to you until you're like way advanced. You have all these like metrics and you have all these progress.
Until you get into YC.
Yeah, but it's like a chicken and egg problem, right? And so we really had to like push through and oh God, like we had so many no's. I sent like hundreds of like cold emails, like literally just scraping like who's a VC on LinkedIn, who's an investor, like literally cold reach outs. They barely work, but you know what? You have to try that. And then as female founders with a female focused product, we were shut down so many times. They would always say our market's too small or like this is not necessary or just a bunch of different things. And we've even gotten like a lot of like very sexist remarks when it comes to it. Like, oh, like, who did you guys hire to build your product? When it's like Kathy's our CTO and she built everything. Or like, you know, male VCs would tell us like, okay, well, that's cool. Let me ask my wife about it. And we're just like, you're going to ask your like wife who shops at like Prada and Louis and Gucci, who doesn't care about like saving money on resale. Like it's not accurate. And I've even gotten like one remark from a VC where he said that I don't seem like a typical Silicon Valley CEO because I let my co-founder talk too much.
Wow.
And I was like, that's really weird because like as a CEO, CTO dynamic, like we like to be equals because it is like an equal partition.
It's also completely normal that most like white male CEOs do the even number of talking.
Yeah.
That was just very strange.
It was like really strange. So I think the biggest takeaway for us is that there's a lot of people with a lot of money in Silicon Valley. So if you get a no, if you get like that racist remark, a sexist remark, like honestly, move on. There are so many other people who will actually see your vision, who will believe in you, and who will give you that check. So don't waste time on like, you know, excuse the language, but like assholes that are just going to put you down because there's other people that can support you.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that remark too. I think we talked about this right before the podcast. How in 2019, only 2.8% of VC fundings went to female-led founders. But over the last year, it dropped to 2.3. That's very disappointing to hear and very sad to hear at the same time.
Yeah.
And I do want to touch base upon that too. Like, I know you kind of talked about it briefly about you being a female-led founder. Like, do you have tips and advice for other female founders, especially minority founders who want to pursue entrepreneurship?
Especially like if they're trying to, you know, get in contact with VCs and investors as well, but as you guys did. And, you know, in an industry where it's like mostly white male, like how do you approach that situation?
Or how do you even find the VCs too?
Yeah, I'd say from, if I'm able to speak for both of us, we do want to acknowledge the advantage that we were able to establish some traction in our own tech careers. Trisha working at Uber, making a strong network there, and myself at Pinterest. And unfortunately, a lot of women don't even get the opportunity to get to that point. They don't even get to that interview to be an engineer at a place like Uber and Pinterest. And so that unfortunately is a big part of it, just the network. From the fundraising pitching perspective, from the technical side, what's also a huge thing is the level of technical emphasis on asserting your numbers, your metrics, growth, as well as the tech stack you've built, the technical moat, whether it is patentable, whether you've made breakthroughs in AI, in machine learning. Like that's something that you actually have to be very defensible in as a female founder compared to the average founder. And that's something that we had to learn the hard way. It took us a long time to learn that we can't listen to the same advice that people generically give to other founders.
Like male founders per se. I mean, female founders just get drilled a lot more on numbers and just everything because, you have your typical Silicon Valley white male founder who can raise like $2 million when they have no product.
Right.
And that does not happen for female founders, especially female minority founders.
Yeah, you can't get away with that.
You just can't. Like, it's just not possible. And we've experienced that firsthand. So number one thing is like, before you fundraise, network like crazy around your community, around your work, etc. Because warm intros always work best. So once you're ready to fundraise, approach like former founders or fellow founders, whoever, within your network saying like, hey, I have this startup, like I'm trying to fundraise. Would you be so kind to just like give me an intro? And they'll know the importance of a warm intro is versus a cold email. So that's one thing. Finding VCs and investors. There's definitely a lot of websites now that you could do this on. But I just can't stress enough to utilize your existing network for warm intros, just because VCs and investors get cold emails, like hundreds of them per week, right? And it's like, what do they care? It's like your email is most likely going to go to archive. And so my number one thing is to be able to find VCs and investors, like find it within your network. Like your friend knows a friend that knows this guy. And that will always like work 100 times better than a cold email.
That's really good advice. Yeah, we hear that all the time. Warm intros always go a long way.
Or you can join Asian Hustle Network.
Love it. So what is like the most important thing? Because we obviously see you guys have such a great relationship between the two of you. I'm very curious, like in your perspective, what is the most important thing when finding a co-founder or a partner in business?
Because essentially you guys are married in many ways.
Yeah. And you guys are always complimenting each other. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, it's been such a like crazy journey, and it passed by so quickly that I don't even know where the point of me and Kathy's relationship really blossomed or something. But
one funny thing that we've just realized is that a lot of people ask us if we live together. Because I guess one of my friends who I've just made said like, oh yeah, it just seems like the two of you live together. It seems like you have a roommate dynamic.
Yeah. So I think what people take for granted the most is co-founder compatibility.
By the way, we don't live together.
We don't live together.
Oh, nice. I think.
Well, she's always here anyways. But a lot of people think that they can just, let's just say, post on Asian Hustle Network and say, I'm looking for a co-founder to do this business with me. And then people are going to comment and like, oh, I'm down. And like, it seems great at first, like, oh yeah, this is great, like, community networking. But there's actually a lot more that goes into it than just someone that is interested in whatever you're doing. And it's such a very tricky and dangerous place where, you're gonna spend a lot of money on legal costs, establishing your company. And then if you have to like fire your co-founder or just like you guys have to split, that's more legal costs. And like people don't think about that. And whatever co-founder friction that you guys have that you didn't know existed because you just met, it's gonna slow down your progress a whole lot. And VCs, investors don't like that. Like if they see that you're not compatible, like they're not gonna want to invest in you really. So I think one of our Queenly's biggest strength is actually our relationship. Like Queenly wouldn't be existing today where it is, where it's in YC if we didn't get along so well. And I think the biggest thing is communication, like really transparent, candid communication is what I would stress upon for co-founders.
Yeah, that honest feedback where you're both coming from a place of trust and where you know that the other person's giving you the feedback, just they want you to better yourselves and they care about you.
Yeah, and like you said, like it's like a marriage, right? And so when you think about a marriage, like a relationship, it's like when you're arguing over something, you have to think about that you're not arguing against each other. You're arguing against the problem. Like you're a team. Like you can't go against each other because at the end of the day, you're only hurting yourselves and your company. And so for me and Kathy, whenever we have issues, like we want to be able to tackle it right away by approaching each other from a place of like compassion and understanding, and like vulnerability is like really key. Like being vulnerable with each other allows you to be so close to each other and to have that bond of trust and respect.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, it's really good advice.
Yeah.
I mean, finding a co-founder, I would think is very difficult, even more difficult than finding a boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 'cause, like money's involved right away.
Money involved, it changes people, it changes their mentality, it makes them more defensive and kind of, untrustworthy in many ways. So that's a really good tip. I mean, luckily I have Maggie as my co-founder.
Yeah.
I love that.
It seems like the two of you also have a really good dynamic going on.
Yeah, we complement each other pretty well. And we're super honest with each other too. Like I think with like a normal co-founder type of relationship, we can't be as mean to each other, where I feel with me and Maggie, she's like, hey, you're being lazy in this one. You need to talk better. You need to enunciate better, blah, blah, blah. Things that normally hurt my feelings, but it's not hurt when I'm working with Maggie or something.
That's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we have one last question for you two. And that is, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
Ooh, a lot.
You have to pick one.
I could probably write 10 books about it now.
Yeah, maybe we'll come up with a book.
Do you want to start? Do you have one?
My advice is to embrace growth. I think that's like the big theme of everything we've talked about, from trying to be comfortable with, if you come from a really different social situation where your family is not supportive of going into businesses, if you have never had that social, that community supporting you before. And as well as just like all the zillions of things you're going to have to learn about each other when you're working with a co-founder, about your own business, about pitching. Like you're not going to be the same person you were even a month ago. You're always going to have to change and adapt. And it's always going to be this moving target of how do I improve as an entrepreneur? How do I learn all these more skills? How do I improve as a person? And so just to embrace that change and that constant feedback is super key.
That's good. Yeah. I mean,
Thank you.
It's definitely a lot that I could say, but I think one that would probably resonate with the Asian Hustle Network community is to prioritize building relationships. And building communities. So for me, even way before I started drafting the app screens for Queenly, even before I even thought about Queenly, I knew that I wanted to start something of my own. And I started building relationships maybe in 2016, where I would go out to so many events in the city and so many like tech conferences, tech talks, etc., and really put myself in a vulnerable position of like being courageous enough to ask for their email and ask to network with them and like really making friends. And I never asked for anything at first. And I think that's the key to networking or building relationships. It's not only like what that person can do for you, but what can you do for them at the moment?
Oh, yeah. One thing she did was really good is that she helped connect people to each other. Like you always offered favors first. Like you always offered like, oh, I can help you connect to this person or learn about this thing. I forgot
how I learned this, but like I just figured like this is like effective way of networking. You can network by just like asking people everything, but what incentive do they have to do anything for you unless you're their friend or you've done something for them? And I realized that this was key. And so for me, a lot of the investors we have today, I started building relationships with them way back when, 3-4 years ago, such as, I would have never gotten the CTO of Uber and the CPO of Uber to invest in Queenly. I wasn't even like high up at Uber. I was like very low at Uber, right?
You're important.
Oh yeah, to them. But like, I built such good relationships with them and impressed them with my work ethic and basically my personality, and that they were so impressed when I told them I was starting Queenly, and that they offered to invest in me and I didn't even have to ask.
Wow.
And so, there's actually this term in Tagalog, which is the Filipino language. It's called bayanihan. And what it means is like, it takes a nation. So that can also translate to like, it takes a community, it takes a group of people to accomplish something. And that really resonates with me in my everyday life, where Queenly wouldn't be here today if not for the community of women that listed their dresses for sale. Not, like for the relationships that I built with the mentors and the investors that supported us. Like build relationships, strong ones.
Love that advice.
Yeah, you two gave such great advice. And one thing that I took away from it is that, you be nice to everyone, because you never know who will help you in the long run.
Yeah, pretty much. Don't burn bridges. Like plant seeds, don't burn bridges.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And so how can our listeners find out more about you two and Queenly online?
So our website is now very easy. It's queenly.com, QUEENLY.com. And then all of our social media are pretty much at Queenly app, so APP. And then we also were available in the App Store and Android, Google Play Store as Queenly. And then, am I missing anything?
I'd say that both of us are pretty reachable if anyone wants to talk to us directly. We're just Trisha and Kathy at queenly.com.
Yeah.
We're both always looking for people to pass it forward and to share advice to. So happy to connect to anyone that wants to, really.
Yes, we are very desperate in changing the 2.3% number. So any female founders out there, like really reach out to us. We'll help you wholeheartedly. Like, we got you.
Awesome. And it's been awesome like watching your story unfold as well.
Yeah.
And shout out to Trisha. I think you're like literally our 50th member in Asian Hustle Network.
Oh, were you? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was keeping track of everyone who joined like the first 100. I saw Trisha's name.
Yeah, we're just super proud of you guys. We also have a spotlight video of you two on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
And just seeing you two grow and just prosper has been so amazing.
Yeah, we're here. We're number one supporters, so appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate all the consistent support. It means a lot to us.
Yes, definitely. And we wish you the best of luck with your fundraising. Let us know if you ever need any help.
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Trisha, and thank you so much, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to the show.
We would like to get to the top 10 on iTunes, so be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We release an episode every single Wednesday, so stay tuned.
Thank you guys so much.